Welcome back to the Zen Curious podcast. I am truly honored to welcome Lydia Riedell to today's conversation. She is a sound alchemist and a Reiki Master who has dedicated her life to helping others find harmony through the power of sound and energy work. Lydia's gentle wisdom has touched countless lives, including my own, and her story is a testament to the profound shifts that can happen when we trust our intuition and follow where it leads. In this episode, we'll explore what Reiki is, how it can support healing and personal growth, and why it's such a powerful pathway to peace. Lydia's journey with Reiki began with a life-changing personal experience, and she has since committed herself to sharing this transformative practice with others. If you're curious about energy healing or looking for new ways to bring balance into your life, this episode is for you. The journey begins now. Before we started, did a little energy cleanse of the space. So maybe we just say a little invocation.
Okay.
Would you like to do that, or would you like?
Well, I was going to say something that I learned recently. I have to close my eyes to do it. Is to tone 3 tones to activate my lower dantian, my throat, and then my whole energy body. Okay, so it's a chant. It goes, Akba, Ekba, Ikba. And it really helps to settle me down and bring in to speak of the highest words, of the highest vibration, and speak exactly as I'm to speak. You want to do it with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so just close your eyes, focus on this lower part of your belly, and really when you say, Akba, Akba, and then it's Ekba, Ekba, and then we're above the crown, it comes down, Ikba, Ikba, all around your biofield. And you kind of step into the center of that and take a few breaths and just bring yourself into a space of letting the words come forward.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that, it was almost like it just kind of washed over me.
Yeah.
Even watching you do it that first time, I felt like a beautiful. Thank you for doing
You're
that.
welcome.
Mm-hmm. All right. Are we ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay. Well, welcome back to season 2. In season 1, we talked a lot about theories and frameworks. And this season, we're really excited because we brought forward some special guests to talk more about the modalities that you get to be in practice and in play with to help you find your pathway to inner peace. And so, Kiera, you've invited a special guest to join us today. Tell me a little bit about how you know Lydia and what made you call her into the space to have a conversation with us.
Yes. So, welcome, Lydia. This
Thank
is Lydia
you.
Riedell. Lydia and I know each other through sound. We met in Sound Circle and began a group called Trine, where we perform for different events around town and sound healing and sound experiences for different groups. And when we were thinking about who we might bring in for the podcast this season, Lydia was one of the top names on the list for a number of reasons. And I'm sure you'll get to hear a little bit more about that as we talk today. But Lydia is a woman of intention. She's a woman of reverence. She is just full of wisdom and insight. And she's been really influential in my path to peace. I would say it kind of went exponentially once I met you. Just doorways started opening and experiences and different things. And so first of all, I'm incredibly grateful to you. And I just could sit at your feet and listen to the insight and stories you have endlessly. I just love the wisdom that you share. And so I'm so grateful that you're here today to chat with us.
Thank you.
But I'd like to start with getting our listeners getting to know you a little bit better, and specifically around how you kind of started your journey in this spiritual path, how that started for you.
Yeah. Well, I think we all start a spiritual path the moment we're born, but I would say that at later times in our life, we come to a place where we know that we're going to transform and change, and we have to find ways to go through these changes with assistance and support and love, and mostly from ourselves, but also from community. So I first of all began my spiritual path by taking a very solo journey by myself, okay? I was in my mid-50s, and I had a red convertible that I bought when I turned 40.
Love it. All right.
And I decided I was going to take this trip, and it was going to be a spiritual trip. It was a calling that I just have to do this. I want to know, what is my destiny? That was my question. What is it I came here to do? I was in my mid-50s, right? That's the second Saturn return. So you get to that point in your life, maybe, if you are inclined to work with astrology like I am, and you start questioning that. Am I in the right place? Am I where I need to be? What is my next best step in life? So I started asking those questions and was pretty sure that a solo trip was necessary. So I decided to go to a place that was surrounded by water, because I wanted to go to an island. I have this connection with water. I grew up in Virginia Beach, which is an ocean, and it spent many hours in the water and exploring the beaches and everything. And so I decided that I would go to Cedar Key, which is a key in Florida.
Yep.
And it's a very small key, and it's a step back in time, okay? It is just like going to something that is still kind of like, buzzing at a certain frequency, but yet it's like a magnet. It was like a magnet for me. I have to go here. I have to be around, surrounded by water in this quest to find out what is my next best step in my spiritual journey. How do I start this whole thing? So I'm driving down the road, and I've got the top down, and I'm just, thinking about all these things that, like, if you're on a road and you're traveling in your car, you might have a map, and you kind of know where you're going, right? You look at the map, oh, here's a sign for, Chieflands up ahead,
Right.
Been through the town of Chiefland, I kind of know what to expect. But what if you decided in your life to take a dirt road to the right, and you just didn't know where it was going to take you? And you go down that dirt road, and you're driving down the dirt road, and you're going like, I don't know where I am, but it's just beautiful. I'm drawn by the sunlight on the trees or whatever is calling you. And then you stop your car, you get out of your car, and you find a little path, and you think, I want to walk down this path. So I was going through that in my head as a metaphor for a spiritual journey, because oftentimes you don't know what you're going to find. You may start out in a certain direction to find your way to a certain place to accomplish something. Maybe you want to be a herbalist, maybe you want to, be an acupuncturist, maybe you have a goal or a destination in mind, and here's how it looks. But then when you're on a spiritual journey of a personal nature, you don't always know what you're going to find. So I wanted to stay in that place of revealing or unfolding the unknown in front of me. And that was what I was being called to do. So I continued on my journey, and I was on my way.
So did you know you were going to Cedar Key, or was the
I
unfolding
knew. I knew.
of okay?
I wanted to go to this key. I wanted to be around the water, and I had made a reservation at a hotel. I knew I was going to stay there. Well, on the way there was this bad storm that seemed to be following me the whole way. I mean, I could see it in my rear view, okay? And that was kind of like a metaphor too, right?
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
this is like, look at that bad storm behind me. It's like, I'm leaving that behind, I'm going into the clear blue.
I love that. I love
clear
it.
blue wonder, of the world and, of adventure.
Yeah.
And so I kept going, and when I got to Cedar Key, I just made it into my room before the bottom fell out. It got inside, put my, convertible top up, got inside my room, and it just started to pour. And it was a very intense storm. I was sitting out on this little veranda that the water was right there. There was a road and then the water. And I could like really feel the storm coming, And I was sitting there and I was watching the water, and a bolt of lightning came down and went right to the water. And I just sort of like, whoa. And I could just imagine Zeus up there throwing down a lightning bolt. Like, pew, this is for you, Lydia. I was just fascinated by the lightning. And, so it started raining more, and it was getting, so I went inside and I just thought, there's something about lightning that I really love. It's just fascinating and magnetic and, full of fire. And so I started striking a physical pose of what it would be to feel like I was lightning. And, I'll do it a little bit of it. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of stood up, and I took my hands and my feet, and I just kind of got in this position, to where I could feel like a lightning bolt. I don't know if I was in the air or not, but anyway.
You were mostly.
Your
head might have been cut off, but.
But this whole body, embodiment of the sense of lightning coming in. And then another bolt of lightning struck, and as I was standing there, I noticed that in the palms of my hand, it felt like there was just like they were on fire. And it almost felt like it was a wound. It was kind of painful. Not excruciating, but just enough to get my attention.
Right.
And I'm
you
looking.
were aware that you had
look at these hands.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, what is going on with my hands? And all I could think of is, put them on yourself. And so I put them on my heart, right around my heart. I knew a little bit about the chakras, so I knew I'd put them here at my heart and just like send that beautiful energy or whatever it was, the heat, into my heart. And I sat down on the bed and I just closed my eyes. And the next thing you know, I just kind of fell back on the bed and got comfortable. And I don't know what happened to the next hour. I was out. And I kind of came to, and it was dark and the storm had passed and I was starving. So I got up and I thought, well, I guess I'll go get some dinner, And the whole time I'm like, what happened? What happened? So I left that island the next day after doing some exploring and so forth. I left that island the next day back for home, and I knew that I needed to find out from someone, what in the world does it mean when your hands get this hot and these feelings come into your hands. And so I got home, and within 2 weeks, I had in my mailbox a newsletter from Unity Church. And they were having a special guest come from Oregon, and her name was Llewellyn Garrett, and she was a Reiki Master. And so they explained that Reiki is this healing modality where you use your hands. It's hands-on healing. And I just was like, oh my goodness, this is the answer that I've been asking this question, and here's the answer. So I went to that meeting. I went to the meeting that night and met her. And when I walked in the room, I have to tell you, I've never really seen anybody with this much light around them as she had around her. I mean, it was like, I'm like, oh, I'm seeing light around people. Not everybody, but her for sure. So, she talked about Reiki and explained things, asked if there were questions, and I raised my hand. I told her that I'd had an experience, recently that involved my hands, and that they'd gotten very hot, and I didn't know if there was something more that I needed to know about this. And of course, she told me that, oftentimes Reiki can come to us in these ways. And I said, okay, I'm going to take the class. So I took the class, the first level class, in August. And by September, I was in massage school. I mean, that's the kind of a beginning of a career and spiritual path for me.
So I have two questions
Okay.
from the story you just shared. My first question is, I'm going to ask them both, and then you can
Okay.
decide how you want to answer them. My first question is like, that is such a heart-led experience. There was, in my opinion, having listened to that, like there's nothing analytical about it. Most of us spend so much time in our heads, but you were just following your intuition.
Yeah.
And like how beautiful that is. And so my first question is, was that normal for you to be so heart-led? And my second question is, prior to embarking on that journey that you just described to us, were you working with any modalities? I know you're a Reiki Master. I know you're a sound practitioner, a Qigong practitioner. I know you're in all of these different modalities. Up to that point, had you been dabbling with any of that, or was this your first kind of experience?
I had taken a pranic healing class from a fellow that came to Tallahassee, and I want to say that was my first experience. And during the pranic healing class, the instructor had each of us come up, and he put his hands on us and told us whether or not we had a calling to do energy work. And he would say yes to someone and then no. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's just, he was just kind of doing this reading. So I got a yes. So I'd had that. And I don't know how much that really was a conscious thing necessarily, but your question about was I heart-led or head-led? I would say up until that time, I had been pretty much very rational and very head-led. In my head led, because I was a single mom and I had a daughter. I had to provide. I had to, be a good, caregiver for her. And so I had, decided to go back to graduate school and get a master's in public administration. And I worked full time, had a kid, had a relationship. I did all this, juggling so that I could provide.
Yeah.
And part of the decision to go to massage school after my Reiki training was also to bring in more money, but I have to say what really led me was my heart. And in fact, to get into the massage school, we had to say what drew us there. And I told them that for the first time in almost ever, I was making a decision based on my heart. So you're very intuitive to ask that question, because it's exactly how I got into massage school.
Yeah.
And for people that don't understand prana, can you give us a quick understanding of what that means?
Yeah, prana, in those days, they were calling it pranic healing, and it's basically working with the energy body, or the field around us. And now that's called the biofield. We've come a long way since then, and now people are researching that, talking about it. There's actual been a conference to name the energy work that we're doing with this field around us. So that was the early days.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, in yogic studies, right, we say prana is life force, or our life force energy, and a lot of times it's manifested in the breath in our yogic practices. True. And so it's just an extension of the biofield, as you mentioned. And I also want to point out, too, one of the things that you had said, as somebody who loves astrology, too, like you're in your second Saturn return, right? Which for a lot of people, one, it happens every 28 or 29 years, I think. And for a lot of people, it's almost like an awakening or a big shift in life changes. So it's not too far off that you're having this big pivot in terms of how you get to be in the world and who you get to be in the world. And so a lot of people experience those transformative moments in their 28, 29, and then in their mid-50s again. And if we're lucky, even in our 80s, I think would be the next one.
I'm coming up on that. Not too far off.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about like Reiki, and for somebody who's looking to like discover peace, or how that might actually support folks that are looking to move from their head to their heart a little bit more.
Well, when I took the first degree, it's very important to practice. And my teacher made that very clear. And there were people in town that were holding, one of her students, one of my teacher's students, was holding a Reiki healing evening once a week. And so, of course, I'm going to do that. So for almost 2 years, we did that once a week, where we were doing Reiki on people that were coming in. Some were Reiki practitioners, some were not, some were just there to experience and work. So I was able to put my hands on people, and I found so many things to be true. For example, my intuition as to what my hands were feeling when I placed them on someone began to improve. And I began to understand, like, oh, when my hands are feeling cold, that's a spot where it's a deficient area of energy. So I might spend a little more time there, okay?
Yeah.
And so, just begin to deepen your intuitive sense around what are my hands telling me, what intuitively is happening in the body. And that's one thing that grew. The other thing that grew is, personally, I had a complete healing of any asthma or hay fever, and you know how this town can be when you have certain things in bloom. And I had been just suffering and suffering and suffering. And so I gave myself Reiki every morning. And I want you to know that it took 2 years, but I got to where I had zero allergy symptoms. Wow. Zero. Wow. And I just Reiki'd my head. It took maybe 10 or 15 minutes before I got out of bed every morning. But that discipline. I learned some self-discipline. I learned by, you have to practice in order to make changes in your life. And I remember my teacher telling me at the time, Lydia, stick with the one seat. There was something about that's taking the one seat. She would tell me that, and I would just be like, I gotta go meditate on what that means. But I think what she was saying is, find something that calls you and make it your path to realize the truth in that for you. And I that's what I did. That's what I did with Reiki. And it took me, I got my first level, like I said, in 1991. I was in massage school right after that. And I was initiated second degree 3 years later. And then from that, in 97, I was a Reiki Master. I became a Reiki Master.
I love that, what you just shared about staying in one seat. That is really resonates for me, because I am like, I go a mile wide and an inch deep on everything. It's like I need to know all the things, and that is such a good reminder. I trained in level 1 Reiki about a year and a half ago, and I was hot and heavy for a while. Like, did the Reiki to myself every day, practiced on the family, and then just got distracted by other things. Yeah. And all of the things that we talk about on the show, like, are pathways to peace. But I think it's such a good point to say, maybe dabble for a little while, and then find the thing that you can commit to, that you can be consistent with, and that you can practice on a daily basis. That helps ground you and connect you and be heart-led. I thank you for saying that. That's a good reminder for me in this very moment.
I'm like you though, Kiera, as well. I mean, I love to study things. I love to learn, and I can do the same thing. Go deep and wide on things. But one of the things I'd like to say about Reiki to anyone that's watching this podcast is that Reiki met me right where I was. I didn't have to do anything extra special. I just had to be me and be open to discovering the me that was going to unfold from this spiritual practice. And that was what motivated me is the curiosity as to who am I becoming, who am I unfolding to here within me from this spiritual practice of working on myself and on other people. And the more I got involved in it, for example, in the second degree, you learn certain symbols, and that intensifies your ability to channel this beautiful, gentle, loving energy through you. It's the most loving energy I've ever worked with. So, you know, learning how to do that and be loving changed my, you know, just changed me inside. I decided that I wanted to begin to take Reiki into places that have never been before. Okay.
And
are you ready for this?
Yes, that's my next question. Tell me more.
Okay, so somehow I found out some friends of mine were involved in a volunteer fire department, and they were calling for first responders. And so I thought, okay, think about that, Lydia. You could respond to an accident scene, and you could just you could do Reiki on people that are involved, you know. So I said, okay. So I became a first responder for the Lake Iamonia Fire Department with my friends, and began to respond to, you know, 911 calls. You know, volunteers can come, and sometimes I was the first on the scene. And I do remember one young man who was in a car accident, and he was sitting in the back of the cop car, and he just looked terrible. I mean, you know, he was just like, and so I sat in the back of the cop car with him and put my hand, said, can I just put my hands on your shoulders and everything? So I did, and he was like, oh, my parents are going to kill me. And I said, no, it's just a car. You're more important than a car, you know. And I just was with this kid, and I was Reikiing him and everything. And so kind of towards the end, when everything was getting cleared up, he came to me and he said, you're my angel. And he just, you know, and then I saw him at the store like a week later, and he just runs up to me. Yo, there's my angel. You know, he never forgot that. I mean, those were profound moments to me. There are other stories. I'll just give you that one as one. But those were the motivating factors for me to be more proactive in my outreach with Reiki. You know, to go out there and begin to do Reiki with different groups and find different, you know, different ways of employing Reiki in my life.
I love that. I mean, we say that these are the unconventional paths to peace. Clearly, you're forging the way in the way that you're able to deploy that. And for those that are interested in Reiki, like, what kind of people benefit from the work that you do?
Yeah, everyone. I mean, like I said, Reiki's going to meet them where they are. It doesn't push anything. And it, you know, we come to healing sometimes with preconceived notions of what we want. We think, okay, I just want to get rid of this anxiety, you know, just take it away. So, you know, and I was a massage therapist too, right? And I'm doing Reiki and, you know, doing massage. And, you know, people wanted me to take their pain away. And it was difficult for me because I wanted to help, you know. I'm kind of that kind of person, you know, kind of like want to jump in there and help and fix and so forth. And and I found myself maybe overdoing it a little bit, but when I did Reiki, it was never that way. It was always like Reiki is coming through me into my hands and into the person that I've got my hands on. So the clearer I am as a, do you see what I mean? As a vessel here, and get my stuff out of the way, the clearer the Reiki is. So that helped anyone who comes in to put my hands on them. I think I enjoyed Reiki in times of crisis, you know, when people were under crisis, or maybe they just get out of surgery, or, you know, and they need that rapid healing. Had some really great stories about making sure that you don't do Reiki on a bone that's broken, that isn't set, because it's going to start healing right away, and you don't want to heal it until it's set. You know, so things like that. And I've just found, you know, many opportunities to just bring that, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, to people in need.
Yeah.
So I'd say everyone.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And if people are curious about learning more about Reiki, like, what would you recommend? Where would you point them?
I would say that they need to go on some spiritual journey for themselves and call that in, and really get a firm yes in their heart space, and then seek out a master. And, you know, I just, like I said, I mean, I just got called, and there it was in the mailbox. I didn't have to do too much except go get my mail and read it. You know, so maybe that kind of thing can happen to people. But if not, there is a very, very strong Reiki community here in Tallahassee. And there, Reiki, you know, since I took it in '91, has really become much more acceptable and talked about, and, you know, understood by the young generation coming in. They kind of come in already with that programming. It's not so foreign to them. So we can speak of it easily, and we can ask our friends, have you learned Reiki? Do you know someone that teaches? And, you know, just kind of in the conversation begin to see what comes your way. Beautiful. Yeah.
So you are a Reiki master, and you are also, you have taught and you are teaching again. If people were interested in, let's say someone does have or feels like they do have this calling, and they want to reach out to you to learn more about how to become a Reiki practitioner, where can people find you to do that?
I almost want to say in the cosmos, but but I want to be more practical than that. You know, I don't advertise about this. It's more word of mouth, and or you know, word of heart. The class that I'm teaching, that's coming up this weekend, which is Reiki, is kind of up front again for me. It just comes this way, you know. And so I was having a facial by a woman, and it was wonderful. And I was, during the facial, I guess I just kind of went into this, you know, dream world, you know, but I was still, you know, awake, but, you know, it was kind of that lucid kind of dream. It just feels so good, and I was just feeling that, and all of a sudden I saw her and me in the middle of her room. She was sitting in a chair, and I was initiating her into the first degree of Reiki. I saw it. And I, when something like that happens, I have to say something. So I asked her if she knew Reiki once it was over. And she said, you know, you're like the third person that's brought Reiki up to me. And so I told her, I said, you know, well, it's been a number of years since I've taught Reiki. And I know some other Reiki people that teach, you know, a really good friend of mine has the same teacher as me and all that. So if you're interested, just let me know. We can work something out. So it wasn't long after that conversation. I told her that I had seen myself initiating her. And it wasn't long after that she called me and said, I would like to take Reiki 1. And then there are 2 other friends of mine that have learned Reiki from other people that want to take it with me. And so they're in the class as well. So I have a class of 3. And yeah, so that's how it comes for me. I don't really know how to tell people to find me. I am on Facebook, Lydia Riedell, and you're going to just see my profile page and everything that I put up there. But I don't advertise Reiki anymore. So
I think that's totally beautiful, and the right people find you. And I resonate with that so much, and then it just gets to be very organic. And
My question for you is like, all right, if it's not you and I live in another place, is there any questions I should be asking the facilitator about their experience, or things I should be looking for, or just kind of just trusting?
I'm a big fan of trusting. I remember when I was going through trust and working on that, I wrote on little pieces of paper what if you trusted everything, Lydia? And I'd fold it up and I'd put it in my sock drawer, or put it in my kitchen, in my cabinet, or I'd put it somewhere, you know, the towels or something, where it would just like, I would come across it and be reminded to ask myself, what if I trusted everything? And, you know, the first thought was, how can you even ask such a crazy question? But it brought me to the level of being able to trust people and to trust the energy that we have amongst us, as to, you know, the question you ask about the heart. Were you heart-centered or head-centered? And, you know, I mean, that's part of my story, Kiera. You already were tuned into that. And this is how I like to operate more than anything, is sitting and talking with people, and things come up or vision shows, and I pay attention. I mean, I'm learning that more and more as I walk the spiritual path here at 76 years old.
Wow.
You know, I'm just more and more aware, and that waking up is a huge part of the spiritual journey. Our soul actually comes here to transform. So transformations can be oftentimes very chaotic, very challenging, and create great struggles for us in many aspects of our life, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. You know, we can have those challenges. But if the soul comes here to transform, then those challenges become opportunities to create the kinds of changes and transformation that's necessary for us to grow our soul here. So we really are spiritual beings having a human experience, right?
Yes,
and it's
we
kind
are.
of you know,
And
the
it's
motto.
And when you look at it like that, it really enables you to have like a sense of gratitude for even the most challenging experiences that you walk through in life. If you're able to you know, see the big picture and you're going through it, because we will go through it more than once.
Yes. And the more you go through it, by the time you're my age, you're kind of like, well, I made it through all that, you know.
What's one more thing?
You kind of, you just kind of get into that, you know, it's like, this is doable. I get through this.
Right. I'd also argue too, like the tools that you've acquired have supported you in doing that too. And so that's why we want to bring these modalities to people, so that they have resource to lean into, because we are not, we're not immune from having the experiences. It's part of the human experience. And so it's about our reaction and response. And these are the things that allow us to realize our agency and power and choice in those matters. And so I love that.
Yes, we are human and we have choice. Yeah, and nature is a little different, isn't it? I mean, it has a natural order. But we are very much like nature, but we do have the choice too. So we can choose to be more attuned with nature and let that help us to move into more awareness and more, you know, a higher flow, a higher state of consciousness, a higher vibration, whatever it is that, you know, it needs to happen for us to advance ourselves, to move forward and to evolve and to transform. So, and I would like to say that, you know, my spiritual path, Reiki has always been my foundation. I have to say it is. It's automatic. It's not, doesn't require the effort that I put in the first, you know, 10 years of it. It has become just part of me. When I think of someone, my grandson is having surgery today, so I've been really in tune with him, lit a candle, and, you know, every time I look at the candle, it was to send Reiki to him. You see? So, I mean, all it takes is a little, just something small. It doesn't take a lot of time to pay attention to a thought or to a vision or to a feeling about someone. And then the next thing you know, that person can show up in your life with the information or the resource that you need to make your next step. So
I loved what you said too about like it when you were explaining how it was moving through you. You were out of the equation and it was moving through you, and it kind of takes us out of that, you know, we can get into that savior complex, like it's my job to fix things, it's my job to do this, but the way you described it was just such a, like you were the vessel that was just working with the healing energy, but it wasn't your responsibility to do the healing. It was just your responsibility to be the conduit for the energy.
Right.
I love that.
And that taught me a lot about, in my massage practice too. I had this kind of, like you say, rescuer. I think you used another term, but
Savior complex.
Savior, yeah. But it was more like I had to rescue people, and help them get out of pain, and I took that on, and it was a lot. So a new paradigm, I think, that's emerging for healers and those people that are already practicing out in the world is to co-create a healing process for the person that is with you, and that is it's mutual, it's wow, it's very expansive and can be totally unexpected. You do not need to have the answers.
Right.
They just come up, and then there's a discovery process from the two people that are involved in the healing, co-creation of healing. Right. So that's kind of a new paradigm for me since the pandemic. Worked my way out of that because I really couldn't see any people or do, exactly during that time. So I used that time to advance myself and study in areas that I wanted to grow myself in.
Use the time wisely.
I did use it wisely.
I love that we talk about the healing trinity and the plant medicine work that we do, and it's trusting the medicine, right? In this case, your energy medicine. Trusting yourself as the participant, and then trusting the facilitator, because it is a co-creative process.
Absolutely.
And without any of those things, the trinity kind of collapses, and those limiting beliefs don't allow the medicine to actually give permission to the healing to happen through us.
That's true, and that's a very stable process, if you ask me.
Yeah.
There's no collapsing.
There's
there?
Unless there's not trust.
Yeah.
in any of those parts,
Right.
right? And so, if you were to leave our audience with something today, like a words of wisdom or exploration around Reiki, what would you encourage them to do?
I guess, I sort of said it earlier, but I want to say it again. I have never found a more gentle and loving practice than Reiki in terms of growth and development and transformation. It takes you step by step. It doesn't force you to jump the Grand Canyon if you're not ready. It meets you, I think I said this before, it meets you where you are in your spiritual development. So there's nothing that you lack. It's like, I don't know that I'm worthy. It's like, oh yeah, you really are. You are worthy. Your entire life is worthy of every step you take in your spiritual work, in your spiritual practice. And you get to choose that. So I think I'd like to leave that message for people to, just to respond to their hearts, follow it, follow the energy, look for the people that have the next answer or the next step to help them, and fulfill that and live their lives in peace.
Beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lydia.
You're welcome.
Thank you so
for
much.
being here.
Yeah, I enjoyed this conversation so
I
much.
did too.
It's always so interesting, and I feel like there's always a story that I haven't heard yet that you have to share. I just thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Zen Curious podcast. I hope Lydia's journey with Reiki inspired you as much as it has inspired me. Her gentle reminder that healing is a process and that we're all worthy of peace and balance is something I will be carrying with me. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love you to share it with a friend or a loved one who might benefit from Lydia's insights. And be sure to tune in next week as we continue this journey of exploration and growth. Until then, may you find moments of peace and healing in your journey. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.